Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and hey, welcome to, I guess right now it's sort of the weekly Q&A segment where I answer the questions that you guys leave on the Q&A videos, and we have a nice little discussion about them, and you guys get to ask me stuff. For the record, you can ask questions that aren't just limited to My Hero Academia. You could go all around and ask all kinds of questions if you want. I really don't mind, but hey, whatever. Only other thing I need to say is if you want a back and forth discussion, I highly recommend just going on the Discord server, joining onto the Discord, and sending me a bunch of messages till I notice if you want a back and forth. But if this is fine for you, feel free to ask some questions down below in the comments. Anyway, the first of this week's questions is coming from Rhiname the Weeb, and this question is kinda in a paragraph, so I'm just gonna read it out for you. Thoughts on the theory that the greatest hero is a title like the symbol of peace and could be earned through Izuku embodying the ideal qualities of a hero like self-sacrifice. I just find it odd that everyone assumes he'll definitely become the #1 hero, and I think it's not impossible for Izuku to actually die at some point in the story, at which point the story becomes about his legacy or simply ends. I don't see anyone talking about this, but I like your opinion. Alright, cool. So it's a pretty cool question. There's a little bit more that I want to elaborate on because there was a bit of a back and forth in this particular comment chain. But I do like the idea of this question, right? I do like it when people question just in general, well, are things really how they appear to be? Or are things really going to work out like this? You know, there's nothing stopping My Hero Academia from having a tragic ending. And in broad strokes, well, actually, I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. Let's just continue on with the comment chain. Later, you had someone coming in and answering him, Arquilla Enelo, apologies if I did not pronounce that right, saying or arguing that since he's the narrator, he can't be dead, right? And then they went on to say, well, unless the existence of an afterlife or of the soul has been confirmed, I think that assuming that he will die at some point in the future doesn't make any sense. Unfortunately, because of the events of very recent chapters as of September the 14th, 2018, there is a mechanic in place for Izuku to be technically dead and be telling this story. So we have to be very careful, because now if this is one of the criteria stopping you from saying this is possible, there's a bit of an upset. There is a bit of a wrinkle now, right? I don't want to spoil it though. So for the manga readers, you guys know what I'm talking about, but for any anime viewers, just be aware there is a mechanic in place, and when you find out about it, it's going to be pretty freaking cool. Alright, so with that out of the way, the comment chain just kind of continued with the elaboration of what it could be, and Rhiname the Weeb ultimately ended it with, he could be narrating on his deathbed, explaining the whole story to the next holder of One for All. That's also a very good possibility. Now, truthfully, when it comes to things like asking, is a main character gonna die by the end of the story, it's one of those things where, you know, I don't really think about it, right? And it's for the reasons that Rhiname pointed out. It's just the story simply ends at the point that Izuku dies. For this one, I think there's a bit of, I think it's almost certain that Izuku, the hero, is going to die, such that it makes this question pretty interesting. So let's start with the most literal meaning of death, right? Is it possible that Izuku could just flat out die and become the greatest hero after the fact? Very possible. We usually have this happening in heroic legend or in heroic stories where people are only recognized as heroes way after they are dead because new information comes to light. This kind of reality though is really cruel. It's really cruel for the readers, it's really cruel for the sentimentality of the story, but it does make for a story that's a bit truer to life, I think. So in this scenario, you know, you'd be asking me, well, do you think this could actually happen to Izuku? And it's like, well, I really hope not. It depends on how sad the author wants to end this story off on what sad note he wants to end it off on, but I don't think that the author would want to do that. So I don't think that Izuku is going to become someone who becomes the greatest hero after whatever large event takes his life. I don't think that's exactly what's going to happen. That would be a little bit that wouldn't live up to the idealism that My Hero Academia kind of exudes. Another part of this comment is questioning whether or not he will definitely become the #1 hero, and personally I do think that Izuku would most likely get #1 hero at some point, but I don't think he has to keep the title for that long, right? Because you could be the #1 hero and, you know, do whatever. The problem with the greatest hero is, and I'm not sure which translation that's coming from, but I'll assume greatest hero. The greatest hero thing might be independent from the #1 hero thing, because the #1 hero thing comes out of a very commercialized system, right? It is very likely that Izuku could attain the greatest hero title without being the #1 hero. And one of the easiest ways I can see that as happening is just Izuku flat out defeats All For One or whatever protege All For One creates. Because All For One is effectively an evil that started since the quirk phenomena started. If Izuku was to take down the greatest evil that not even All Might was able to deal with, I feel that is grounds for calling Izuku the greatest hero when we go out into looking into the history books, right? When people look back to this time period in My Hero Academia, I would not be surprised if people just don't argue about the fact that after all his accomplishments, Izuku is the greatest hero, even if he wasn't #1 at the time. So that's another aspect of the greatest hero title, and that part of the question where he was asking, does Izuku embodying the ideal qualities of a hero like self-sacrifice make him the greatest hero? I think that line of thinking might lead to something, might lead to the answer there. I do think Izuku's gonna earn that title without playing into the ranking system. That said, I do see Izuku becoming the #1 hero, but I am really hoping that the rankings aren't as stagnant as they are in All Might's generation. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of back and forth in the adult years of these kids as they are all fighting for #1. Like, I would love it if Tokoyami, Bakugo, you know, Todoroki, heck, throw Momo in there as well, if those characters all got a shot at being #1 for even a few months, right? I would love that kind of thing, whereas everyone would agree, no, Izuku's the greatest hero, he took down All For One once and for all. Like, I think that's the criteria for what the greatest hero title is going to be, when you take down the evil that's permeated your entire society since the beginning of power. So that would be pretty cool. Now finally, let's talk about the death in the metaphorical sense, Izuku's death as a hero. Here's the reality of the situation. Unless One For All suddenly reveals that it has a new power that's only accessible to Izuku, that lets him keep power, we know 100% that Izuku's life as a hero has to come to an end at some point. All Might still looks like a relatively young guy, right? And he had to give up his life as a hero. And One For All being a quirk that gets passed on to other people, you know, the natural assumption is Izuku is going to have to pass on that quirk. He's going to have to pass on that mantle. And when he does, it's over. That's it. His life as a hero is done. Izuku never trained to be a hero like Nadai. Izuku never trained to have the capabilities of Stain. Everything is reliant on his One For All power, such that he will literally, the hero Deku will literally die when that power gets passed on and it's fully out of his system. He's not a hero anymore. If anything, he becomes a motivational speaker like the current All Might, right? So that's one aspect of it. I do definitely think when it comes to a metaphorical death, Izuku's going to experience it at the hands of his successor, technically. But that's probably where the story is being told from. Rhiname the Weeb made the point that he could be telling this to his successor on his deathbed. I think that's possible. I do think it's a good chance he is reciting this story to his successor. Whether that means that he's reciting it from a very special place, or whether he's reciting it in the same way that All Might would recite it to him in current time, remains to be seen. But definitely the hero Deku will die before Izuku himself dies. Unless One For All pulls out some kind of weird maneuver and gives Izuku eternal power for some reason. But yeah, overall, those are my thoughts on that particular question. I really like this question. I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of possibilities here for Izuku. It's either he dies and he's pretty much telling the story from beyond the grave, or he just dies and gets remembered as a hero later on, or gets recognized as a great hero later on, or, you know, he just is telling this story to his successor when the hero Deku dies, or when he gives over one for all to the next generation? You know, pretty cool question. That said, I do think Hero Academia is a happy story. I think it's more likely that we're gonna get Izuku reciting this story in the flesh, which is a nice thought to have. Okay, so that was the first question. There was quite a bit to unpack there. I had another very quick question I can answer here, coming from Jesse Ornelas, asking, would you like a mini arc, 3 to 5 chapters, where Kaminari and Ashido have to take a villain down by themselves? It can show even though they're at the bottom of class in terms of grades, doesn't mean they're dumb, they're just bad at tests. Let them prove themselves, could maybe even get a ship tease out of it. Now, okay, so individually, definitely I would love them to get arcs, but right now the current manga arc is really hopeful for showing off some characters' capabilities, so I'm pretty excited for that. But where Kaminari and Ashido has to take down a villain by themselves, you know what? Ashido needs more screen time, and if they want to pair her off with Kaminari, sure. There's no precedent for her being paired off with Kaminari aside from them both being dummies. But yeah, you know what? I would really love a mini arc where any of the underrepresented characters get to take down a villain by themselves. Right now, Ashido's in a weird place. It's unfortunate, but we know more about her character in middle school than we know about her current character. She's in no, that's too much of a spoiler. Point is, I like the idea of this, and I like that they put in that they can get a ship tease out of that. This person clearly knows how to get my attention. That said, yeah, I think this would be cool. Although it'd be interesting because this turns into a question of, can Ashido carry a arc with Kaminari? And the thing is, I think she should be, because as we found out through a certain flashback, Ashido is pretty much the girl version of Izuku, right? Like, it's really odd that we have not gotten interaction between these two people who have some very specific traits. It's just odd. Ashido is a character that should be interacting with Izuku because they have a lot in common, or not a lot in common, but you guys understand. They have like just how they would approach stressful situations and what they care about and what they like try to go after. Ashido very much has the makings of a true hero by Stain's standards. So anything that gets Ashido more time and puts her in the spotlight, I'm gonna enjoy. So Jesse Ornelas, thanks for asking that question. I think, yeah, Ashido needs it. Kaminari could ideally go without it because Kaminari's already proven himself a bunch of times. We don't necessarily need him to be proven. That said, Ashido and Kota, or Ashido and Sato, yes, those guys need to be proven. Ashido and Hagakure, maybe. Hagakure, whatever. Ashido and Choji, also probably one that could happen. Right now, Ashido and Kaminari is probably the one I could do without it, but it'd be cool to see it regardless because Ashido would be there. Okay, I think those are the main questions that I can see on this quick page because everyone else is just commentating here. I do remember there was someone who asked a question about Tokoyami, and it was something about the nature of Dark Shadow. Please, if you are watching this right now, I highly encourage you. I can't find that comment here on this page. I know it was there though because I saw it a week ago. Please write that comment again if you want me to answer that question. I would love it. Go for it. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thanks for getting involved here. All right, cool. So that was the Q&A for this week with a few little extras thrown in there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, leave some questions down below if you want them answered for around this time next week. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.